Good morning, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, good morning.
Awesome. How's
Yes, I
everyone
can
doing
hear you.
today?
Good morning.
Get this video going. There we are. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Good, good, good. All right. Just letting a few more people in. Awesome. All right. Anybody got any good stories for us? Any good stories you guys want to share for the weekend? From the weekend, I should say.
I picked up a buyer. I talked to them tonight.
Oh, you picked up a buyer. How'd you do that?
Yeah. A referral.
Referral?
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations. That's good.
Thank you.
Where are they looking?
Roselle area.
Roselle? Okay. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's always been a hot market.
Yeah.
How are the taxes in Roselle? They're still crazy? They're getting worse?
About the same. I think they're about the same.
If you guys don't know, Roselle probably has the highest taxes in like all of Union County.
Union County. Yeah.
And New Jersey is notorious for having the highest taxes in the country. Did you guys know that Short Hills has Milburn has the highest taxes in any city in the entire country?
Wow.
Highest tax rate.
Wow.
I mean, a lot of the people there, they can afford it. You know, it's a very high-end area, but still, it's crazy that it's right in New Jersey. Not
Yeah.
surprising. Though.
I got a chance to practice my storytelling.
Did you? Tell me about
Yeah. Every week I coach second and third grade basketball for Upwards.
that. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's
That's
good.
So if I could hold the attention of 8 and 9-year-olds, then that's a good practice, I must say. Even if you don't have kids, if you got opportunity to volunteer to coach for a couple of weeks, that's good practice.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, if you guys have a problem with patience, spend some time with kids. You have no choice but to find patience. All right,
Most
think about it.
definitely.
Good, 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 good. All right, yeah, I think we're ready to go. I think we'll let one more person in and we'll get started. All right, I think we're good to go.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning, Ivania.
Thing.
Yeah, so guys, this week is going to be a very, very volatile week. The reason why I'm saying that is because you guys know that the housing market is hanging on to a thread. It's literally up in the air right now. What can happen next? We can either have a softening out of the market, maybe go sideways for a while, or we could quite possibly have a really hard crash. And a lot of people are thinking that that's probably the way we're going. I'm in that camp where I think we probably still got another 25% to go on home prices at the very least. In some areas, probably more. And this Wednesday, we're going to hear from Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve, and why you guys should pay attention to this and why it's important to you as a real estate agent is because they're in charge of our monetary policy and they're going to dictate what kind of interest rate hike we're going to see next. And whatever interest rate hike we see from that, a lot of people are assuming it's going to be a 0.5% increase, 0.5% increase in the federal rate hike. And if that's the case, or it could be higher. Some people think it could be, 0.75%. I mean, it could even be a quarter. Who knows? But what I'm saying is, let's just go with 0.5%. If it does increase that much, that means that bond yields are going to go up, and if bond yields go up, then mortgage rates go up. Okay, so we've been having a little bit of a breather in the last month or so with interest rates kind of coming down a little bit. But if we get another rate hike and the market gets spooked, we can see those interest rates just go right back up. Mid sevens, maybe even eights. So don't be surprised if in December or in January you see interest rates in the 8%, and that's for well qualified buyers. Now, what is that going to mean? I mean, psychologically, like an 8, we haven't seen an 8. I'll be honest with you guys. I've been in real estate for 20 years, maybe even approaching maybe a little longer. I've been involved in real estate. I've never seen an 8% interest rate for someone that's A paper. A paper means someone who is like good credit score, good down payment, no blemishes on their history at all. To get an 8%, that's a psychological hit that I don't think a lot of people are ready for, which means that In order for them to be able to swallow that pill, they're either going to have to get a lot of incentives from the sellers, or they're going to have to get a hell of a deal, like a good deal, right? Because at the end of the day, anyone who looks at it logically from a perspective of a business, because everything you buy in life, you should look at it from a perspective of business. Even if you're buying a car, or if you're buying, a vacation home, if you're buying your first home, whatever it is, wherever you are in life, should always look at it as from a perspective of a business. Is it a good business decision? So if I have to take an 8% interest rate, I'll do that, but I'll do that if I can afford it, right? And for me to be able to afford that, it has to be much cheaper, right? So then prices could really come down. But what if we have the opposite effect? What if the market really cheers on whatever Jerome Powell does and the Federal Reserve does next? Like, what if we start getting a what they call a Fed pivot? For those of you who are not familiar with the terminology, a Fed pivot is basically when the Fed starts to say, okay, we've done enough. The economy's been hurt enough. We need to start calming things down, and we need to start figuring out a way to kind of land this plane, right? If they do that, and there's signs that they're starting to reverse course and start to bring rates back down, then the market can go into a rally, and we could see a sell-off in the bond market, and we can see interest rates come down, right? So that's a possibility as well. It doesn't just have to be a doomsday scenario, but the consensus, the majority of the people who have looked at this kind of situation we're in, have unanimously been really just thinking that this is going to be another leg up. People are thinking that we're going to go into the mid fives with the Fed funds rate. Right now, I think we're in the mid fours somewhere. I got to double check on that. If somebody can do a Google check on that, let me know where we are. I think we're at 4.5, if I'm not mistaken. But what I'm saying is that if this happens and we continue to go up in our interest rates, the market is in for it's not going to be a, what do they call that, Santa Claus rally? Usually at the end of the year, we usually get good news. We can get the opposite. We can probably have like a Grinch Christmas, guys. It could get really ugly, but at the same time, it could be a very good thing for you, because if you guys are starting to pivot your business into working with more investors, or working with people who have been priced out of the market, or maybe yourself, you're like, you know what, I've been holding on to this money I've had in the bank for a while, waiting for a good opportunity. Those opportunities may start to show themselves. If you've got a 401k that's just sitting there stagnant, and you don't really even know what to do with it, or because you're not doing anything with it, usually it's a money manager that's moving those funds around for you. You may want to start thinking about in 2023, hey, how can I roll this 401k over into a self-directed IRA or self-directed 401k? And how can I start to deploy some of this money to my own investments, because the market's coming down? And those are things you got to start preparing yourself for. And if you've never taken the time to look at those options, I know some of you may have come from a corporate background and you've got these 401ks that are just sitting there. Why not start doing some research on how you can tap into that money? Belinda, I think you might have had that, if I'm not mistaken. Didn't you have like something similar to that when you were working corporate America before? Oh, you're muted, too hard.
My profit sharing.
Oh, you had profit share?
Yeah, my stock options is what I cashed out.
You rolled it over, or you cashed it out? Is what you did?
I cashed it out.
Okay, yeah, that's another option. The only thing with cashing it out is that you do have a tax burden, right?
Yeah.
You either pay it now or you pay it later, I guess is the way people look at it. But you cashed it out, you took the hit, but you bought a house and now it's worth what, 2-3 times more than what you paid for it?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's strategic, guys. I mean, you can't, as real estate people, you cannot just be like, oh, I hope I'm catching the market at a good time. Like, there's no hoping in this. You guys have all the tools necessary. When you look at the market doing really bad, when people are scared and people are selling off and interest rates are high, that's when you're going to start to see a real good opportunity market there. You're going to see opportunities for yourself. You're going to see opportunities for your clients. And today we're going to talk about some of those opportunities and how you guys can tap into them, and how you can really make this year, 2023, you can make it the most profitable year you've ever had, even though home prices are coming down, right? And we're going to talk about a couple of ways and you can do that. Now, before we get started, how many people here think that we're going to get some bad news this week? Does anyone follow the market outside of real estate? I know Alejandro likes to do some trading. I know you probably do as well, Belinda.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think? What kind of I like to open up a discussion before we jump into the meat and potatoes.
I think we're gonna get some bad news, but it's
Yeah.
it's really basically what I've seen before. This is a mind game.
Yeah,
This is purely a mind game.
psychology, right? Is that really what you
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
What do you think is
most
going to happen
definitely.
if we get if we get another 0.5% increase in the rate hike?
Well, I think we're going to see another run right now. A couple of prices have come down in commodity, like your food and gas. I've seen
Yeah.
gas prices come down definitely dramatically over here. My regular gas,
Hmm.
for those that buy regular gas, has come down to 287.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. But after the new year, I think we're going to see inflation just increase another good percent. Things are going to go up again and hang out there until spring.
You think so? You think we're going to keep seeing massive inflation in commodity goods?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I think she's right. We are going to see an increase in inflation in commodity goods. I agree with her.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, because there's a number of rollouts. I don't know if everybody knows, but there are more checks being cut from the government to um, increase spending. So they want you to spend for this last couple of weeks.
Hmm.
And I still haven't received my taxes from 2020, and I just got a notice saying that they are promised to give me my refund before the end of the year. So that's a big thing. They still have over a million, really almost a billion tax processes that have not been completed. So IRS is in a big push to get the money out for those that owe. And did you hear that they also are increasing if you have not received a tax refund for 2020, they're going to give you a 7% increase.
Oh, really? They're going to give you like a COLA bonus?
Yep. Yep. So
Wow.
everybody that still hasn't received, so they're trying to give you the money for everything to, start to creep back up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think California recently, I don't think anyone here is from California, but I think California recently had like a second round, like another round of stimulus checks that they issued to their, I guess you would call it their residents of California for, I think they titled it something like inflation protection checks or something, or inflation, like fighting inflation checks or whatever. There's some crazy name that they gave it, but it's the opposite because I'm not going to obviously get political on this, but let's just look at common sense. If people have more money, people spend more money. If people spend more money, things get more expensive. It's the same amount of, it's more money chasing the same amount of goods. So obviously things have to get more expensive. The only way to combat inflation is for people to stop spending so much. So right now we're starting to see commodity prices drop because demand is going down. Because as demand goes down, prices have to come down. It's just the simple laws of supply and demand. So like Belinda was saying, gas prices are coming down. I'm seeing diesel prices coming down. Shipping container prices are coming down. Warehouse rents are coming down. Like a lot of the important things that fuel everything we use on a daily basis is coming down. And the reason why is because people are cutting back. I'm not sure if you guys are in the same opinion in your own household, because if you look at the macro trends, they seem to resemble what's going on inside your own house in your own backyard. Is usually okay if you had a conversation recently with your family, you guys said, okay, we're gonna stop shopping so much at Whole Foods, and we're maybe gonna start going more to like Walmart to pick up some stuff. Maybe not so much like we'll get a BJ's card or Costco card. Those are the kind of decisions that people are making right now because internally they want to stretch every dollar. Well, on the macro level, it's happening as well. Companies are stretching a dollar. We just had the PPI report last week, which is basically the manufacturers and the producers inflation numbers. We just had that this week that just passed, and they're seeing a drop off in prices as well. They're seeing inflation kind of like dwindle down. So I do think that this week's inflation rate. I'm sorry, what we're getting this week is the inflation numbers, which is I apologize. I said the Federal Reserve is meeting this week. It's the inflation numbers that we're getting this week, which is what the Fed is going to use to make their decision on how they're going to increase rates. So I apologize for that. So Wednesday, we're going to get the real inflation numbers, which means that if we take a look at what we've been seeing, I think the last report we saw was like a 7.7% increase in the interest rate. I'm sorry, in the inflation rate. And for a lot of you who understand, 7% is literally almost 3 times the amount that we should be seeing, or more than 3 times the amount that we should be seeing to keep a healthy economy. And if we look at that on a long-term scale, if we compound 7% over year over year, that's a recipe for disaster. That's really, really, really bad. But what the Fed's trying to do is get us down to 2%, because at 2%, it keeps us keeps our head just above water. And the reason they want to do that is because they want to make it where it encourages you to spend your money, but not so much. Because if you don't spend your money, the economy doesn't move. But if you know that, hey, listen, these dollars are 2% worth less every year, well, I should buy things with it. I should fund my business because my business makes me X amount a year. I should use this money to go invest, because if I invest, I can at least make 8% a year, 10% a year in S&P 500, as opposed to losing at 2% every year to inflation. But if you're losing money every year because your inflation is so high and it's literally 7-8%, then people start to run out of options about what to do with their money, and things get very scary when people start to hold on to their money more and more, which causes a recession and could lead into a depression. Now, technically, right now we are in a recession, right? But there's a lot of people who think like, oh, how can we really be in a recession if the unemployment rate is still very low, if spending is still very high? How can we still be? How could this be technically a recession? Well, a recession, if you look at the definition, is
Louis,
yes.
sorry to interrupt you, but I have Danitra in the call and she has to leave soon, so I just wanted to introduce her.
Oh, sure.
I don't know if she's still there. Danitra, are you still there?
Hi, yes, I'm still here. Hi,
Danitra.
everyone.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thank you for the invite.
Oh, no problem at all. Thank you for being here with us.
Danitra is switching jobs and she is focusing more on real estate now, and she's a go-getter.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited for her to be joining us.
Ooh,
Yes, thank you.
sweetheart. Yeah, no worries. And by the way, this recording, if you want to watch the rest of it, it will be in our Culture University YouTube channel. So if you get an opportunity, just go to YouTube later and type in Culture University.
Yes, that would be great. Thank you so much.
No problem. No problem.
Have a good day.
Yeah. So let me get to the point here when I'm explaining to you guys that where was I with
Technically, we're in a recession.
Yeah, technically we're in a recession because a recession is defined as 2 negative quarters of GDP growth. So our gross domestic product has gone down for 2 consecutive quarters in a row, and that's technically a recession. We're probably going into a deeper recession now. Now that everything is the commodity prices starting to come down, gas prices starting to come down, unemployment's probably going to start to creep up. All of those things are the benchmarks for a real technical recession. So what a lot of people are fearing, and I hear a lot of CEOs worried about, is if you keep increasing these Fed funds rate, what's going to happen is that borrowing, not only for mortgagees and mortgagors, gets more expensive, but borrowing on a business level, borrowing on a corporate level, that these a lot of these companies, they carry debt. Like any company you could think of, Amazon, Apple, Tesla, they all have debt, and that debt is tied to the Fed funds rate. So the more expensive it gets for corporations to fund their operations, the more layoffs they have to do. The more layoffs they do, the higher the unemployment rate. So Jerome Powell is technically trying to get us to break our economy, but not to the point of no return. He's trying to get us to a point where we're kind of like, all right, we learned our lesson. Like, we're going to stop spending so much money. And that usually takes a while to happen. You don't just turn around what happened in the last few years in a few months. You don't print that much money, which, if you guys know the statistics, I think it was something ridiculous in 2020 or 2021? Who knows the statistic on this, but I think they said that like 40% of all the currency in existence was printed in that 1 year. Like, it was incredible. Somebody could look up the stat. It was something unbelievable. But you don't just bring that much liquidity into the system without having some deep repercussions. So that's why you hear people saying that this is going to be a deeper recession than we've ever seen within the last generation. It could be as ugly as 2008. Who knows how bad it's going to be? But we're going to talk about today how you can actually use this time, if it does get to that point where it gets really ugly, how you can focus your attention on not only working with obviously residential buyers and sellers, but how you can make a killing working with investors as well. And that's something that I think everyone's going to need, that skill set you're going to need when the market does take that turn. All right, so let me back things up for a minute. Back in 2007, 2008, where things were starting to get really, really ugly and the market was going to hell, we didn't see investors jumping out of the woodwork. We didn't see the first time HGTV investor jumping out the woodwork saying, all right, I'm here. I'm ready to invest, right? Because everything we heard on the news was so negative that people were still scared, right? It was only until 2010-ish that people were like, oh, okay, I'll dip a toe in the water. You start to see more people coming out and having the bravery to invest in the home. It takes time for the sentiment to start to reverse course. So what I'm saying to you right now is that don't expect a line of people or people to be, pounding down your door, ready to invest when things are just starting to get really bad, right? You may have coached yourself and talked yourself into opposite thinking, which means that when the news is bad, that's good, and when the news is good, that's bad. It's technically what you should be thinking as an investor. But not everyone's wired that way. Usually, people are wired in what's called the herd mentality. When everyone's running in one direction, they run in the same direction. That's just a survival mechanism. So the same thing goes with investing. When the news starts to kind of turn and pivot course, that's when people start to come out more. So you need to be prepared before that happens, because when it is the time, you need to have all the tools in place. So first things first, let's talk about a couple of different opportunities that we're going to see out here. First thing we're going to see is we're going to see a lot of people start to have issues keeping up with their mortgage payments. Why? Because both of a loss in income, we're going to see a loss in income for sure. We're going to see possibly some people having their interest rates also tied. Anyone who had an adjustable interest rate, their interest rate is going to kick up, which is going to be more expenses. And if Belinda and Tanya are correct that next year we may have continued rise in commodity goods, which is basically putting food on the table, being able to drive, those types of things. If those things continue to go up, I mean, it's crazy how much it can go up compared to how much more money people are making year over year. Because people's salaries may stay the same or go down or completely be eliminated, but the price of everything continues to go up. If that's the case, you're going to see a rise in people not being able to meet their mortgage obligations. So you're going to see first, you're going to see a lot more homes hitting the market. And then secondly, you're going to see a lot more expired listings. Who has been keeping track on the amount of expired listings that have been hitting the market or have been actually coming off the market, I should say? All right. Well, recently I saw some research that was done that the homes that are expiring are on a huge uptick. They're in a pretty big uptick, and that's research that was done on the West Coast. And all you guys know from previous experience, if you don't know this yet, a lot of the real estate trends start on the West Coast and they work their way this way to the East Coast. If you guys are on the East Coast or West Coast, wherever you are, and that's usually the way things work. And funny enough, sometimes they even start in Canada, believe it or not, weird as it is. So we're starting to see a lot more homes coming off expired. Okay, so that's another sign that the market is heading in a downward direction. And some of those people who are expired, they're only expired because they don't have enough equity in their home to continue lowering the price. So if that's what continues to happen, what we're going to see is then people having to do what are called short sales. How many people here have ever been involved or conducted a short sale themselves? Can I have maybe just say me, anyone? Anyone short sale? I know Nicola has.
Me, I did.
Vanya has, yeah, for sure. Okay. I think what I'm going to have to do is do a short sale, like a short sale kind of crash course next week with you guys, and maybe go through that with you. But a short sale, when it first came around, I'll tell you back in 2008-ish, around that time or 7-ish, I had an attorney, his name is Lee. He called me one day. He's like, hey, listen, your seller that we're working with, they don't have enough equity to close on the house. I'm like, what does that even mean? He's like, they owe more than they're selling for. I said, how is that possible? They accepted an offer and I thought they knew how much he's like, yeah, but they didn't factor in all their closing costs, such as commission, their unpaid, utilities, these types of things. So they're going to be short like $2,500, $5,000, something in that ballpark. And I'm like, so they're going to have to bring the difference to the table. He's like, yeah, that's one option, but unfortunately they don't have the money to do that. I'm like, oh, great. So my deal is dead. He's like, no, not necessarily. we can try to ask the bank for a short sale. I'm like, a short sale? Like what the heck is a short sale? He's like, I can call the bank and I can see if the bank would be willing to take a few $1,000s less. I'm like, why would a bank ever do that? I was like, Lee, you're crazy, bro. I was like, whatever you're smoking, man. I don't think that's going to work out. So a few weeks later, calls me. He's like, yeah, I got the bank to agree to take $5,000 less. I'm like, what? I'm like, are you serious? He's like, absolutely. I'm like, oh my God, like this is crazy. After I learned about that opportunity, I actually got fascinated with the process, and I started a company called American Home Consulting, which basically just focused on finding short sale opportunities. And I was the only real estate agent in the entire area who was not only experienced in conducting short sales, but I was one of the only ones brave enough to even take it on, because most real estate agents, they were like, I want nothing to do with this short sale thing. Can you just do it for me and I'll give you, and just give me a referral? I said, absolutely. So that year I spent just like educating myself about short sales and what the opportunities were and how we can really corner this market. It was hard because remember, guys, short sales, they're not really short, they're long and they take forever. Sometimes they take forever. They've gotten better, but my original few short sales, they took, oh my God, so long, guys. And I'd go months and months and months without making any money. And I'm like, oh, is this worth it? Is this going to work out? Like, am I just like crazy for even trying this? But once the first one closed and the next one closed and the next one closed, and I learned so much. It was such a valuable resource for me to learn. And we got to the point where I ended up creating short sale processes, and I educated many people on how to work short sales from the ground up. We came up with workflows that really made the short sale process so much easier. At one point, when I was a partner in a real estate company, we had a short sale department, which basically worked like this. We had the originator, which usually was the real estate agent who would find the short sale. And then the real estate agent would then hand off the short sale to an opener. Then the opener would collect all the documentation, make sure we had everything we needed to get the short sale done. And then the opener would transfer that file to a processor. The processor would be the one that would follow up on short sales a few times a week and basically get it from A to Z, get it closed. Once it got to closing, then that file would be transferred over to a closer, and then that closer would do everything to button up that short sale. Meanwhile, the real estate agent didn't do anything else, didn't bother themselves on like working the short sale itself. And it was a beautiful system. We did hundreds of short sales, and like we got a reputation for doing so many short sales, and it worked so well, guys. I mean, it was just unbelievable how well it worked. But we only got there by starting with figuring out how to conduct a short sale first, seeing if a short sale is lucrative, first of all, because can a short sale be lucrative? Absolutely. Can it be a waste of your time? Absolutely. It could be both. But you got to remember, it's just a rule of numbers. Some of them are going to close, some of them are not. And right now, what I'm going to teach you is how can you take a home that's cheaper? How can you take a home that's $100,000 per se, or even 40,000? I remember doing short sales for $40,000 homes. Like, it's ridiculous, right? How can we make those deals just as profitable as $1 million listing, right? So let's break down those numbers for a second. Let's just say we took $1 million listing today. And let's just say that $1 million listing is at the top of the market, which means that it's not normal for that area. Most homes sell for about 800, 900, but yours just happens to be $1 million listing because the person did so much extra work and it's got more square footage than every other house in the area. That's going to be a tough sell, right? We're not talking about $1 million listing in a $5 million neighborhood, because that would sell like hotcakes. We're talking about $1 million home. So if we took $1 million home and you got the seller to give you, on average, let's be honest, when $1 million listing, most sellers don't want to give full commission. Let's just say you got a 5% commission. A 5% commission means you have to give the other agency half of your commission. So that means you're left with 2.5%. 2.5% on a $1 million listing is still $25,000. Not a bad payday, right? It's pretty good. We're not going to get into commission splits or anything like that, but $25,000 gross commission, nice deal. But the problem is that you're going to have to probably do an open house every single weekend till that thing sells. It may not sell within the first 6 months. They may need to extend it. You may be working on that deal for about a year before it ever sells. And remember, the whole time you're doing damage control with the seller. sellers calling you all the time, asking you, why hasn't my house sold? Why hasn't my house sold? Why hasn't my house sold? You know, and you got to do this song and dance for about a year. Now, let's look at the other option. Well, the other type of transaction you can do. Let's just say you take a short sale listing. You meet a family who came across tough times, and they need someone to help them get this property off their books, right? So you go to the listing. The people are literally like they're just overcome with nerves because they're like, you know, stressed out about, you know, is the bank going to come for our house? Are we going to get kicked out? Like, these are the questions you're going to hear. Is the bank going to kick us out in the street? Are they going to change the locks on us? You know, like those are the kind of things that go through their mind. They got kids most of the time. So you go in there as like the hero, the savior of their property, and you say, listen, I got this. I'll be in communication with the bank, and I'll make sure that that does not happen, because that's not the way the foreclosures happen anyway. You look at their situation, you get in contact with the bank, you have to put a little legwork in initially, but then it really turns out to be just like a regular transaction after you set the gears in motion. You have to collect the paperwork that the bank is going to need. You have to send it into the bank, and you have to make sure that you get the house listed and you get an offer. And then once you get the offer, you send everything in together. Then the bank's going to give you what's called a short sale approval letter. And that short sale approval letter will basically allow the owner of the house, the seller, to sell it at that given price that the offer came in for. Or the bank may counter you and say, no, we want a little bit more. So then you have to go and counter the buyer. And if the buyer says no, then at least you know what the bank wants. So then you can list the price of the home at whatever the bank wants. It just ends up turning into a regular transaction that way. But the home is worth $100,000. So how do you get just as much commission as you would from that $1 million listing? Well, when a home is priced correctly, a lot of times you end up getting the buyer yourself, because it's such a hot deal that buyers are calling the office looking for you. Off that loan sign, people are calling you directly because they know they increase their chances of getting the house by going directly through you. So that commission is no longer going to be a negotiated 4% or 5%. It's a full 6%. John Lewis, who is notorious for charging 7% on short sales, he gets 7% sometimes. So let's just say we go with 6 because that's a norm of what a short sale bank will pay you. So now we're talking about $6,000 gross commission that came in on that deal. But on that $6,000 commission, what if that property is good for a investor? What if that property is really good for someone who's looking to fix and flip or to keep it as a rental property? Is that property worth more to them than what you get it approved for? And a lot of times it is. So what we did for many, many, many years is we had these relationships with our investors, which are called non-exclusive buyers agreements. What non-exclusive buyers agreements allowed us to do was dictate to our investor pool that if we find you a property and we find you a good deal, we can charge you an additional amount of money on top of whatever the bank is paying us, or on top of whatever the seller is paying us. We can charge you an additional amount of money if we find you these opportunities. Now, the way that this works legally is that you have to have this relationship and this paperwork in place before you come across a property. Because if you come across a property and then you're like, oh, let me add another $10,000 to this property because I want to make more money, then no, that's not the way it's supposed to be done. The real way it's supposed to be done, the correct way, is that the buyers, these investors, have to have agreed with you to give you X amount of money through the non-exclusive buyers agreement, and then you can make the money that you expected to make on them. So for instance, go back to the $100,000 property. If we go to that $100,000 property and the investor likes it, the investor is now looking at this property as like, oh, this is a $110,000 property. Does it make sense for me at 110? Let me run my numbers. Actually, it does make sense. No problem. I'll buy this home at 110,000. So what you've done now is you've initially turned a potential $3,000 or $6,000 commission. You've now turned it into a $16,000 plus commission, which now puts you in the same playing field as being in that $1 million club, where you had a $1 million listing that you worked your tail off for, that you were going to make 25 grand if it closed in God knows how much time. Or you can take this $100,000 listing. I'm not saying or on top of. Additionally, you can do business that's only $100,000 and make just as much money, if not more. Why do I say if not more? Because when that investor is done renovating that property, who do you think he's giving it back to? He's giving it back to you. Now it's not $100,000 listing anymore. Now it's going to be a $250,000 listing or a $200,000 listing, and you'll be able to collect additional commission on that. So that's why I say that the opportunities that are ahead and are coming up in 2023 are some that we rarely see. Like I've told people for the last 2 years, I've been very selective, if any, of the investments I had made, because there haven't really been any good ones. There haven't been too many investments that I'm like, oh my God, I'm over the moon for this, because I know that we're on a hype cycle. And during hype cycles, there is really no room for long-term investors to go in there and say, yeah, I want this property. You may have seen a lot of speculation going on, and speculation, what it is basically buying a home, fixing it and flipping it, right? That's speculation. And look at all the new construction home builders right now. They're in a panic right now trying to get rid of these properties. They're trying to literally batch them off and sell them in bunches because they don't want to get stuck playing hot potato. And right now, home builders are literally playing hot potato because they've got this unsold inventory. I get emails literally on a daily basis from home builders here in Florida giving incentives to real estate agents to sell their properties, like incentive after incentive after incentive. Like there is no negotiating anymore. Home builders that weren't cooperating with real estate agents are now offering 3% plus, on the buyer side. So why I'm telling you this is because if you've never taken the opportunity to look into how profitable a short sale can be, it could be very profitable. You just need to be able to understand the process, know that it's not impossible, and know that you're doing the greater good. Because one of the things you'll see when you do a short sale is that the seller is so infinitely grateful for you helping them. There is never a conversation about what your fee is. There is never a phone call every other day, why is my home not sold yet? And at the closing table, like you literally have changed these people's lives because they no longer have to have those sleepless nights where they don't know if the bank is going to foreclose on them, and then they move on to the next chapter of their life. They reset their slate, they wipe it clean, and then they get started all over again. Meanwhile, not to diminish $1 million sale, but if you do $1 million sale, that almost feels more transactional to the seller when they see how big your commission check was. And sometimes they feel like, you took something from them, which is not always the case. But I'll be honest with you guys, I've been in both situations many times. And the sellers on the short sale end are a lot of times way more grateful than the sellers on a regular transaction, especially the high-end transactions, because a lot of those people you would think that they're better off and they're wealthier. A lot of times they count every penny that much more. So that's one of the things that I want to comment to you guys on. But before I move on to the next part of this, I'm going to open that up for discussion. Who has experienced short sales? Maybe you guys want to give us maybe your feedback, or maybe I'm completely off the mark. You guys are open to debate on this.
I haven't done one, but I don't think you're completely off the mark. What I need to look into is that here in Georgia, got 30 days and it doesn't have to go through a judge.
Oh yeah, so the foreclosure process in
Yeah.
Georgia is a non-judicial, so it goes straight through a trustee, and it forecloses that much quicker. So short sales are not a real big thing there.
I wouldn't say that they're not a big deal. What I am excited about is that now I get a chance to use Remind in a different way in finding those properties that maybe was purchased maybe 5 years ago and up, to see who is, upside down or getting ready to be in trouble, and start sending them mail and do my marketing that way.
Yeah.
With
Right.
information, letting them know that, hey, if you're in trouble, I got a solution for you.
Sure.
If I could catch them on top of it, then that may be my biggest game changer.
Mhm.
That's great. Now, let me just explain something to you of what Belinda said. Some states are judicial, which means they have to go through the court in order to foreclose. Some states are not judicial, which means it can go straight through a trustee and foreclose that much quicker. Some states have a mixed bag of both. Okay. So the upside to judicial is that it takes so much longer for the banks to foreclose. It could take literally years. So banks are really open to short sales that much more in those states. But if the state is non-judicial, which means it goes much quicker, you have to be quick too. Like your marketing to those sellers has to be, hey, listen, if you don't want this property foreclosed and you don't want them changing the locks, we got to move quick. Like if you're 30 days late, let's get on the call. We need to move like yesterday. Okay. Now, why would a bank want to do a short sale versus a foreclosure? Belinda, why would a bank want to do that?
Because they get all the principal. They get their money. And if they do a full foreclosure, if they had to go through a judge, it costs them a whole lot more and
Yeah.
a whole lot more time. And here in Georgia, the banks don't want that sitting on their books.
Mhm.
So they're rather foreclose in order to turn that right back around to your agents that handle those properties.
Yeah. Yeah, well, one of the reasons that's exactly correct, Belinda. And one of the main reasons that you're going to realize once you're in this business long enough is that banks are in the business of lending money. Banks don't want to own homes because when they own homes, that's money that's sitting on their books that they're not flipping over. They're not being able to reallocate for more loans, and that's how they make their real money. If a bank can get what the house is worth today versus waiting 6 months to get what the home is worth in 6 months, and then have to go through all these extra expenses with attorneys, real estate agents, preservation companies, evictions, and all these other things, the bank would much rather do it today. Okay. So yes, it is easier to get things done in a judicial state than it is a non-judicial, but there are still many upsides for banks to want to work with you and a seller to be able to get that property off their books before they end up having to foreclose. Foreclosure is really kind of like that last resort for a bank, and a lot of times it ends up being that it doesn't even sell at the foreclosure sale, and then they have to take it back on their books and then keep it on there for as long as they have to. And God forbid it gets broken into, or in some states where it gets cold, they take the property back and everything freezes, and now they've got like a property that's completely trashed. It's a lot of downside to the bank, a lot of risk in owning real estate to a bank. So yeah, those are the reasons why they may accept those. Anyone else want to chime in on that? Anyone who has some experience? I think we had Alejandro here too. Alejandro's been involved in a lot of them.
Yes, I have a question, Lou. For example, like what you just say about, well, the banks, it looks like the banks want them back now, like
Now they
not
do.
like before. Huh?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, for this last year or so, banks didn't have a problem taking them back. Why do you think that is?
Because I noticed, like I did a short sale and it looked like they sent somebody to put like, to cover it up like with paint in top of the mall. So the bank sent somebody to actually like make it like a makeup.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what they've been doing, and that's why they put the offset so high on the sheriff so nobody will buy.
Yes. Why do you think that is?
Because the market was, I mean, it's been hot, but it's still like they're still buying it back.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because they know that property is climbing in price. So if they take them back and they have to put it back on the market in a few months with a real estate agent, they know they're getting more money than they would by just letting them go early on to an investor or at a sheriff's sale. At the sheriff's sale, banks have two options. They can either price it at what's called the upset amount, which the upset amount is what the bank is owed. So that means the principal and interest, the legal fees, late fees, and any other fee that may have been attached to that property, such as property taxes that the bank had been paying for. So let's just say that initially the loan was 200,000. With all these extra fees, the upset price could be 275,000 now. So the bank could either say, look, we want the upset, which is 275, in order to be able to be made whole. That's what we owed. Or they have the other option to then come in and say, okay, well, we'll accept, we're owed 275, but we did our numbers and we'd rather just accept 225 today, which is called, we used to call, I don't know if it's a proper name, but we used to call it the drop. The drop price is basically what the bank is willing to accept today, almost like their reserve. If you guys ever been in a bidding situation, a reserve is what the bank is willing to take. So if we're privy to that information, we know what the bank wants. If we don't, then we have to prepare for what we want to pay. If that's the situation, then we know that banks are seeing that they would rather cut their losses today, get this property off their books, because they don't feel confident in what could happen within the next few months into the next year. So right now, I think banks, Alejandro, are going to be more willing to do short sales and foreclosure sales because the future is not so bright. I don't think the banks are are thinking that they can get more money for these properties next year. So I think that we're going to see a little bit of reversion back to banks being more willing to negotiate and give opportunities out there to other people. And if we're lucky enough to get one for ourselves, I'm telling you guys, it could be very profitable. You know, you can literally change your life from zero to millionaire in just a few years if you do a couple of strategic moves. What do you think, Alejandro?
No, man. I mean, I think you're right. Just I haven't seen it till now. Like the offset is still high at the auction, and people still buying. It's ridiculous, man. I don't know. Like,
Yeah, just wait till you start to see us creeping into 2023. I think everyone's going to be singing a little bit of a different tune. Now, remember, just because investors are still buying at sheriff sales, remember, people are buying properties for different reasons. You know, some people buy properties because they want to flip them because they saw it on HGTV and they think they're going to make 100 grand on a deal. And then on the opposite end of that spectrum, you have foreign investment that's coming in that's burning a hole in people's pocket that they have to put to work, because that money, what they do with that money is they buy rental property. And if that rental property makes them 7% a year, 8% a year, then they're happy with that because maybe they got that money for 5%, or maybe they got that money for 4%, and they're playing a little bit of arbitrage on the difference on the money. So there's going to be all different types of people that you're up against. But you know, Alejandro, from experience, that being patient and waiting for somebody to not show up or slip up, you know, that's when you get your opportunity to get a good deal. It's never been easy. Anyone else want to add anything?
I agree. I think it's going to be interesting to see how it all turns around, because historically we have more millionaires here in America than at the time that we had any kind of depression or inflation rise up. So this psychological warfare that we're going in, like, who is the big target? Because you're not pretty much scaring the mainstream entrepreneurs. They're pretty much scaring the working class, the full-blown W-2 working class.
Exactly. Because the savvy investors, they're always going to have their eye out. They're always going to be looking. But there are
Can you
other
mute
80%.
Alejandro? Because I can't hear you.
I'm trying to mute him. Okay, there we go.
Okay.
Yeah, so the savvy investors, they're always going to have their eye out, but we're going to have the majority of people out there are always going to be the ones that are listening to the news, that you're not going to see them pop out to the woodwork until the party's already started and well into, you know, the later hours. So what we really have to look at going forward is the trend. Where is the trend? What's the trend going into right now? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm starting to see the trend shift into a negative perception big time. So usually with that, when you start to see that trend shift, it takes time. Like you guys, I think you know by now that real estate is like that humongous cruise liner, right? The biggest cruise liners in the world, right? They can't just pivot and just be in a different direction 1 minute to the next. They take a lot of space. They take tons and tons of time to maneuver that ship and turn it into the other direction. But in the meantime, we see more liquid markets such as the stock market, bond market. We see these other markets that are moving much quicker in a different direction. And that kind of gives us an idea of where the real estate market is going to be in 6 months. Okay. So I want a lot of you guys to understand that, because if we see, like, it's kind of like the last shoe to drop, right? Or whatever however you may look at it. I foresee that we still got a long way to go with the real estate market. And even though Alejandro's correct about, you know, a lot of investors out there are still buying, and that's just because the pent-up demand is still there. There's still a demand for real estate. It's not like an oversaturation. We haven't gotten that yet. What we really have is just a lot of investors who are just willing to take anything right now because they have to put their money to work, because their money is literally devaluing, right? We're talking about inflation now is at 7-8%. The money is literally devaluing every single day. So they're looking at it like, oh, we'd rather just buy the real estate because we're not going to be flipping it next year. We're not going to be flipping it, you know, in 2 years. They keep these properties into a portfolio and they keep them for decades, you know? So for them, they're looking at it as like, hey, an opportunity is opportunity. If this property cash flows, we'll keep it and we'll worry about this thing in 10 years, you know? So that's an investor that you got to really look out for, because, you know, they're obviously always going to be looking. So those are the people you want to A, align yourself with, and B, also know that those people will be your competition if you're ever in a position to go to an auction, like Alejandro said, like he's gone to sheriff sales and he sees this thing firsthand. And if you guys have never been to a sheriff sale, I will tell you this much. Go to your sheriff sale locally, not with the intent to buy anything, but the intent to learn and see the sentiment, because you can learn so much from the way that, like Alejandro said, banks are asking for a lot of money. Like if you go there, you know, do a little research, you know, write down the addresses of the homes that foreclosed that day and see how much they sold for. So you're there, you're like, okay, 123 Main Street, it sold for 300,000. Let me go back to the office later and check out 123 Main Street. And you're looking at yourself like, wow, 300,000 for 123 Main Street. That's actually a great deal. Or maybe on the opposite side, you're like, oh my God, that's a lot of money. Like that's what people are paying on the MLS for properties like this. So do the research.
Louis,
Yeah.
you can actually go there and pick up clients. I used to go and then just stand outside and give my cards to everybody.
Well, that goes without saying. Absolutely. Like, would you rather go to a networking event with 100 real estate agents, or would you rather go to a sheriff sale with 100 investors? Like if you have picking up investors, guys, like there's literally a nonstop meetup every week at your sheriff sale department. Now, if your sheriff sales are online and they're not in person, still it's not a problem, because a lot of investors, they still go to the city hall. They still go to either the city hall or the county to drop off deposits, to pick up information, to do, I know that John Lewis used to do this regularly. He used to go to the, what is that called? The, what are those people that pass away? Surrogate court. He used to go to
Probate.
surrogate court. Sorry?
Probate.
Yeah, probate and surrogate court, in order to be able to see who passed away recently. And like, if you go to these places and you look around, you can tell who's a player. You can tell who's, and you can overhear conversations. I've even gone to the county, and I've heard people, what's it called? They go there to adjourn their sheriff sale. What that means is that like a homeowner who's in distress is going to the court to say, I want to adjourn my sheriff sale, because in some states you're allowed to adjourn them, postpone them. And that gives you the opportunity to then go and say, hey, listen, I'm a real estate agent. Do you have anyone helping you with this situation right now? And you'd be surprised how many people will actually be like, oh my God, yeah, like I have no idea what to do. This attorney that it was working for me, supposedly he was helping me, and I haven't seen anything come out of that relationship. And a lot of times you can offer suggestions that they didn't even know about, you know? So it's a good place for you guys to, you know, sometimes if you're not busy and you're looking for clients, it's better than sitting at home. They're not in your house, I'll tell you that much, but they are out there. So yeah, great suggestions. Anyone else?
Louis, in the New Jersey newspaper, finance newspaper, they were talking about, I know this is happening in New Jersey, how a lot of large corporations are preparing themselves to buy up a lot of the properties that are getting ready to come on the market.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, it's no lie. I mean, real estate is one of the most solid investments that people can make. And the reason why is because it's not tied to any one trend that can change. Like for instance, if you invest, you know, one of the most solid investments out there you can make right now is like investing into Apple, let's just say, right? If we invest in Apple and then next year we find out that, you know, Apple has been building all their iPhones with child labor and everyone cancels Apple, your investment in Apple is going to go to half or a quarter, you know, like who knows? But investing in real estate, no one can ever come and say, hey guys, research just suggested that living inside of a home is bad for your health. We need to go living outdoors. You know, that's not going to happen. That's why real estate over time has shown to be one of the safest investments, but yet that comes with a caveat. It's one of the most illiquid investments too, which means that if you need to get your money out, it's not that easy. It's not that easy to turn around and sell your property, cash out, take a refinance. So all these things take months. So that's why if we're ever in a position to tap into our home's equity or another property's equity, we should do that when we don't need the money, as opposed to when we do need the money, because when we do need the money, it's usually coming at a higher cost, so kind of a food for thought if you guys are in a position to tap into some resources there. But yeah, absolutely, Tanya. I mean, look, people are getting ready. People are getting ready because they know there's a humongous crash coming. There is something coming. I did a video a couple of days ago, I think it was last week sometime, about there is this REIT, it's a REIT, real estate investment trust, by the name of Blackstone. And Blackstone, they're a closed REIT, which means that they're not public. You can't go and invest into their ticker symbol on the stock market. You have to be invite only. You have to be a wealthy individual in order to be able to invest. They own properties that are some of the best properties in the world. They own casinos, they own the Mandalay Bay, the MGM Grand, they own logistics warehouses that people have to utilize for trucking and all types of things that we need on a daily basis when it comes to those daily necessities. These are the best types of real estate that you can own. They recently, well, they're going through right now what's considered to be the equivalent of a bank run, which means that investors have been requesting to take their money out of these REITs. And the reason why is because investors are scared right now, because all the other REITs that are public that show their income and expenses are all bleeding. They're all losing money because home prices are going down, and a lot of the demand is going down. So these so-called wealthy, intelligent investors, they're seeing the writing on the wall and they're requesting their money. The problem with that is that real estate is a very illiquid asset, which means that they can't just go and be like, oh, you guys want your money back? Okay, well, let me go to the ATM machine of real estate and pull out the money. They can't do that. So they have what's called a cap. They have a cap on how much money they can take out every month. So the cap is 2%. Every month for the last 3 to 4 months, they've exceeded that cap, which means that they literally have run out of cash on hand to pay investors who want their money out. So last month in November, they were only able to meet 43% of obligations, which means there's 57% of people who are still waiting on the sideline for their money. And when you're an investor, a wealthy investor, and you hear that everyone else is jumping ship, how do you think you're going to feel? You're going to feel like, okay, wait, something's happening. People are pulling their money out in droves. I have my money here too. I want my money as well. It's literally like a contagion. It will spread like wildfire. And so these are supposed to be some of the best REITs in the world. They're experiencing bank runs. They literally had to sell almost a 50% share in the Mandalay Bay and the MGM Grand recently, just to grab enough money to pay their investors. Now, what do you think if you're a betting person, right? What do you think is going to happen in January? What do you think is going to happen this month in December? Do you think they're going to exceed, or they're going to meet all the required redemptions that are being asked for? Probably not. And this is trickling into other real estate investment trusts that are also privately owned. Forget about the publicly owned ones. You can see their stuff. It's clear as day. You can go and look at their numbers. But the reason I'm telling you this is because those are the signals that we look for that the market's not doing so hot. And how would this affect you? You're not a wealthy investor that has money tied up in a REIT. Why is this affecting you? The reason why it's affecting you is because these REITs, they own a lot of the big real estate, which means that if they have to start liquidating real estate in order to pay people, that means that real estate is going to be more available and abundant. And it's also going to be sold at, I don't want to say fire sale prices, but quick sale prices, which means that it's going to bring the housing market down in general, because more supply means lower prices, and more investors that are not pulling their money out, they're getting ready for something that's even worse. Like, you don't pull your money out of one thing in order to buy something else that's more expensive. You pull your money out as a wealthy investor because A, you see a better opportunity on the horizon, or B, you think the opportunity you're in right now is going to crash that much more, or a combination of both. So that's what we're seeing right now, and that's what we're going to continue to see. Hopefully you guys also pick up on these trends that are happening, because these things can literally alter the course of the next 12 months that we're seeing. So just wanted to bring you guys up to speed on that. Anyone else want to add anything before we go?
Can you tell us a little bit more about the training that you're going to offer us next week?
Oh, yeah, sure. So next week we could dive deep into how to use a non-exclusive buyer's agreement with an investor to be able to do it correctly. Every state's going to be a little bit different, but this is a National Association of Realtors form, which means that there's pretty much a version for every state. This document will allow you to work with investors and make it worth your time. Because remember, when you're working with an investor, you can't just go to the MLS and be like, oh, here's a house, let me call my investor and sell it. No, usually it takes a lot more digging than that. And it takes a lot more meetings than that. And it usually takes a lot more effort on your part. So what I would suggest is that don't be scared of looking for investment properties, but make it be worth your time. And then I can teach you guys pretty the over bird's eye view, bird's eye view of like how to, I would say, underwrite a short sale to make sure that you're doing it right. You're preparing correctly, and that way you don't end up having to fall flat on your face and make a fool of yourself. You don't need to hire an attorney to do it for you. You don't need to hire a third party that's going to take half your commission to do it for you. You can do it yourself, or you can hire a virtual assistant to help you with the what's that called, with the follow-up in order for you guys to be able to close it quickly. So I'll show you guys how we operate now with, basically I have one person working on my short sale team. Now, even though we don't do that many short sales that much, but we always have a few in the pipeline, I've been able to take full team of people and condense it down to one person because we got the process down right. And I'll show you guys how I operate that. And maybe you guys could, mimic that operation when it comes time to, if you get busy enough. Sound good?
Would like that very much. Thank you.
Great info, man. Great.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Luis, how can we sign up for the classes?
Oh, okay. So next Monday, I'm going to show you guys how to do this short sale thing. It'll be next Monday here. But
Okay.
if you're referring to the auction program that I've been touting that I've been working on, as a matter of fact, I just finished that program over the weekend. I'm buttoning up a couple of reference guides and glossaries right now. I'm going to be uploading those into the provider that's going to be able to allow you to watch those trainings from a mobile device, from your computer, from anywhere. You can listen to them on the go, on audio, like audio, whatever you want to do. So I'll give you guys more information on that during the week. I'll send out an email if you guys are interested in that. Obviously, you guys are going to get a huge discount compared to everybody else. But that's going to teach you how to actually go to a sheriff sale or approach the sheriff sales online, and how to increase your chances of not only winning, but how to decrease your chances of making a mistake and buying something that either is not profitable or something that comes with hidden costs, such as a lien or taxes that you didn't know existed, IRS taxes, IRS liens, those types of things that could really cost you more money than what you planned for. So if you guys are interested in learning how to make money from sheriff sales, not only for yourself but for your clients, I'll also give you the link during the week when it's 100% complete.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, Lou, I'd like to add something. What what you teach, man, I learned so much, and yeah, I really appreciate that. So whatever you whatever is a discount because I did so many deals with it, like the buyer's agreement
Oh my God.
and all that. It's great, man.
Yeah, Alejandro was one of the guys that was there from day one when we started doing the proxy bidding process for investors, where we would literally go for the investors to the sheriff sales and buy them properties at sheriff sales, and then they would pay us a commission on top of whatever we got the property for. And like Alejandro said, we made so much money with that, and that's around the corner, guys. I mean, maybe not within the next few months that you're going to see a huge increase in that, but it's around the corner. It's going to come, and when it does come, you guys will be prepared for it. All right, are we good? Everybody good? Awesome.
Mhm.
All right, yeah, so I think last week we had a request for someone else to take, I think Sarah said she wanted to take us out in a prayer this week, right? But she's not here. Anyone want, any ladies want to volunteer? Tanya, you sound like you want to volunteer.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Okay, let us pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the blessings you all bestowed upon us. We pray, Lord, that as we go forth through this new year, that you will give us the skills and the tactics that we need to bring on good business. We pray that you keep us in good health, that you watch over us, our families, and our clients. We pray that we make the right decisions to help the people. And we pray that you will look out for us and help us to be the best that we can be. We thank you for all your blessings. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Amen. Have a great week, guys.
Tanya.
Well,
Thanks, Lois.
thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.